years ago, a colleague of mine told me I should feed dogs raw chicken wings, to which I responded, as I'd been taught in college, that raw chicken wings are liable to kill dogs. And he said, read this. And he gave me a book by a guy called Billinghurst called Give Your Dog a Bone. I read it. It made sense. I sort of realised that if raw meat and raw bones killed dogs, then they wouldn't exist, because there would be no wolves, there'd be no foxes, they would have died out millions of years ago. So I started feeding my own dogs, and all I saw was the fact that their coats improved, but I tentatively began to use it in my surgery for dogs with bad skins, anal gland problems, teeth problems, and gut problems. And after about 6 months, I had 4 chest freezers at the back of my surgery, and I was selling enough raw food and chicken wings to pay for an assistant for 3 days a week. And I thought maybe a third of all the dogs that I saw who had chronic diseases improved or got better simply by taking them off kibble and tinned meat, but especially kibble, and putting them onto raw food. And so through my clinical experience, it's become a major part of my treatment regime as well as my prevention of disease. And I've been utterly convinced, because I've been doing this, having been a skeptic, for 20 years now.
Trying to do it yourself, so you do have to learn how to do it well, but there are now quite a few companies that are out, certainly in the UK at the moment, that are producing excellent raw food compounded diets, so that when you're starting out, you haven't got to start with a block of meat and vegetables, and so it's done for you.
I look at dogs as carnivores, and there's no doubt that they are carnivores, and I look at what they eat in the wild. And they are hunting animals, they eat prey, they catch and eat prey, they eat the whole prey, and that's the skin and the bones and the innards and the meat. And they're also scavengers, which means they'll pick up roots and berries and fallen fruit and vegetable matter. And so I see a real healthy diet for a dog as being something as close to that as possible, which is raw meat, raw offal, raw bone and raw vegetables. And that's what my dogs eat, and what I put a lot of my clients' dogs on.
I think that it's good for them to get exercise with their jaw and their muscles and their tongue. I mean, that's what they're built to do, is to rip and shred meat off a carcass and to grind knuckles and things. That's what they're meant to do. When they just swallow kibble, it just goes right in the front and just right through and down their throat. It doesn't really even involve their teeth, which is one reason why they have such horrible teeth. All the raw-fed dogs that I've seen have beautiful teeth. They don't need dental procedures.
I think a raw diet is no more risky than any other diet that one can possibly feed. The critics of raw feeding say that dogs are going to get problems with bones, and they're going to get infection with salmonella and campylobacter, but we're just not seeing these problems in reality. The epidemic that they predict is not happening.
I think if dogs were dropping dead from feeding kibble, then obviously people would stop doing it. Of course they're not. They're running around quite happily, but there are lots of kids running around eating McDonald's and being quite happy. My belief and my experience is that we start to see the price that's being paid for what are often cheap and poor quality ingredients further down the line. So we are now seeing, and I have been in practice long enough to say I think there's been a change. I was in practice before commercial complete diets and kibble was as popular as it is now. And I think that we have seen a rise in the incidence of what I would call the degenerative diseases that are affecting humans, and humans that eat what's often called the standard American diet, but a poor Western diet. So that's high in refined carbohydrates, high in bad trans fats, and poor quality ingredients, which are often the residue of the human food industry. And my argument to people is that, you can't run a Ferrari on paraffin. Why do we expect to grow good, healthy bodies on poor quality ingredients? And I think that it's not the younger dogs because they have a vitality of life that overcomes the poor quality ingredients. I think it's middle age and afterwards, and I actually think it's become regarded as normal to see fat dogs often with heart problems. Even the dogs that are considered well are usually overweight. They have dry, flaky coats. They have teeth problems. It's considered normal for dogs to develop teeth problems by the time they're 5 or 6 years old. And I would flag up, having had dogs fed on raw almost from weaning, that is not normal.
But we have no qualms about talking for species-specific feeding, for natural feeding when it comes to reptiles and, our other exotic species. For many years we have banned the feeding of animal products to our herbivorous farmed animals. It was an important step to understand that it was incorrect to be feeding them animal proteins. And it's just the same for our pets. Why shouldn't we be looking at a species-appropriate diet for our dogs and cats?